Of the three major crises facing the country this week, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg played a key role in helping address two of them. He helped to end the historic port strike by the International Longshoremen's Association after just 3 days, which is very fast, by the way, narrowly avoiding what could have been an economic disaster. And he's assisting in the emergency response to Hurricane Helene, which has destroyed critical infrastructure and left people stranded in isolated areas. That job, as I was just talking about, has been made more difficult by a swarm of MAGA-amplified misinformation that threatens to confuse victims of the storm and waste very valuable resources. Joining me now is Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. Secretary, it's so great to see you, and I know you've had quite a week, so I appreciate you being here to talk to us about everything you've been working on. And I know we're going to talk about the port strike, but I want to start with the hurricane and the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, because your department and you have also played a role in helping with that. And the Washington Post reports that rumors and conspiracy theories have already prompted unnecessary evacuations, and some of these falsehoods have been viewed millions of times on social media. That's just some of the reporting. There's lots of reporting in local papers as well about how damaging this has been. But you and your department have been so involved. How damaging has the misinformation been? And what impacts are you seeing in terms of the recovery and the people who are trying to find loved ones and get accurate information?
Well, it can have a real cost for people on the ground who are already dealing with so much. And, you know, it's right up there with making sure that people have access to transportation, making sure they get their power back on, making sure communications come back. Another part of that is making sure you can get good, accurate, and useful information. Unfortunately, that has become, in many ways, more difficult in the current digital information environment. And so it's become more important than ever to have trusted and reliable sources. We've worked to make sure that information that gets to users is good. For example, state 511 systems, and then for responders, we set up a routing assistance hotline, just so that if you're involved in an emergency operation, you could call and get our data about where a road might actually be open and available, or out of service where a bridge was taken out. But you look at what's going on online, a lot of it seems to be driven by politics, and that is actively harming and disrupting the process of getting back to normal for so many people whose lives were upended by this awful storm.
And the recovery is still certainly continuing. That's very helpful information for people to know out there. I saw this. I'm sure a lot of people saw this. You actually personally pushed back against some misinformation about hurricane relief in an exchange with Elon Musk, of all people, on Twitter. We are showing it right there, basically telling him that he could call you if he was confused. Whatever you told him seemed to work, because he publicly thanked you and said you're on the ball, which is not something he typically does. Did you end up speaking with him, or did he just take your word for it online?
No, he took me up on that. He called. We had a conversation. What we found out was actually happening was the FAA was not closing down any airspace, but there was an issue with pilots who were helping get Starlink equipment to where it needed to be, having the right information. We worked that with local authorities, and we're able to take care of it. And you know, I think to me it's an example of how often the best thing to do is just to pick up the phone. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but since there has been some confusion and even misinformation about the FAA's temporary flight restrictions, I should probably explain how it works. This is a process that has been in place for decades, and basically what happens is if you have a disaster area, there's a lot of rescue operations going on. A local airport or fire department or the Coast Guard flying helicopters, somebody like that, can request what's called a TFR. It doesn't shut down the airspace, but it increases the level of coordination that goes on, because you want to make sure that that airspace is safe and that you prevent the risk of collisions. And so when you hear that term, that's what's going on. Again, I don't mean to get that technical, but I've been amazed at how a little kernel of some detail gets blown up on the internet into something that it's not. And some of what I've seen going on around what the FAA does to coordinate and facilitate rescue flights, including, you know, a lot of good Samaritans who are out there as civilians helping because they have pilots' licenses, and that's a great thing. It's just important that they coordinate and make sure that it's safe.
No question. Sometimes weedy details are essential to making sure people have accurate information. So let's talk about the port strike. If this had not been resolved, and I mentioned this, that it was resolved very quickly, and people should understand that, but it would have had a huge impact on the economy. And I don't know, with everything going on out there, that everybody understands the depth of the crisis that was averted. So what would have happened? Because I'm sure you did some scenario planning. You all thought about this internally. What would have happened had this strike continued for weeks or even months?
Yeah, this was a major concern for our transportation systems. I think if it were not for the fact that there was so much else going on that same week, it would have been the #1 thing on Americans' minds. And it has caused some issues that the ports and supply chains are working their way through, but they'll be able to catch up. There's a big difference between a short stoppage and a long stoppage. In about 3 days, there was a deal where the parties agreed to higher wages for these dock workers who are very deserving. You got to understand, these are folks who come to work in really tough conditions. They didn't get much of a raise under the last contract. Many of them were going to work during the toughest days of COVID. Dozens of them lost their lives, and they're trying to participate in the enormous profitability that the shipping sector has experienced in recent years. Now, what happened was an agreement to get back to work, an agreement provisionally on increased wages, and they're going to get back to the table and work through other things like what to do about technology and automation and some issues around other pay, royalties, and benefits that go along with their work. But the bottom line is we really count on our ports. We experienced this with a lot of issues on the West Coast ports in 2021. We were able to work through those so that they had record throughput by the end of that year. But you could really feel the pinch, and in order to make sure that our economy is running smoothly, there's just no substitute for having all of our freight systems, whether we're talking about trains, whether we're talking about ports, whether we're talking about highways and bridges. We need all of them up and running, and I'm very glad that they're back up and running as of today.
Secretary Pete Buttigieg, thank you so much for joining us on a very busy week.
Thank you. Thanks for having me in.